Hey, do you want to know the secret to playing in any key anywhere on the fretboard? Well, it's going to be modes. Sort of. Let me show you what I mean. So if you've seen my last video, or you started to learn the pentatonic scale across the neck, then you know that we can use different scale shapes to play in the same key in different positions. Usually you'll start with a relative major and minor scale and see how they can be combined to reach more notes than any one of them would give you access to. And last time around, we looked at putting what I called the Dorian pentatonic scale next to the major scale to be able to reach even more notes higher up the neck. And I called it the Dorian pentatonic scale because Dorian is the name of the mode that you get when you start on the second note of the major scale, which happens to be the note that we're starting on the low E string in that shape. Now, this doesn't mean that whenever we play this shape, we're playing in Dorian, which can kind of be a key of its own. It's really just a way to name this scale shape to help us map out the notes in the key across the fretboard. This will help us memorize the shape and remind us that it's right next to the major scale, since Dorian again is starting on the second note. And when it does come time to play in Dorian, it'll help us out there too, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. In the meantime, I want to show you even more shapes we can use in the same way to map out every note in a particular key. So, without further ado, the Phrygian Pentatonic. Again, I'm getting that name from the mode. In this case, the one starting on the third note of the major scale, which will be the note that we're starting on down in the low E string. But before we do anything, we're going to have to learn this shape, which is again going to mean locking our hand in position and going through the finger combination. In this case, I'm going to start with my first finger, and I'm going to start that on the 5th fret. And once I'm in position, I can see my first two strings are a 1-4 finger combination. And then 1 and 3 on the next two strings. 2 and 4 on the next string. And 1 and 4 again on the high E string. And then going back down, I reverse the whole thing, starting with 4-1. 4-2, 3-1 on the next two strings, and 4-1 on the last two. Of course, you're going to want to memorize this and get pretty decent at going up and down before going any further. But after that, the next step is going to be learning to shift from the Dorian pentatonic to this Phrygian pentatonic. So let's see how they go together and see if we can find any spots where we can shift up on our first finger, which there happens to be on the G and high E strings. Let me show you that one on the high E string first. So I'm going to start my Dorian on the 3rd fret to give myself some room to shift up, which means I'm going to be starting with my second finger on the 3rd fret. So starting with my Dorian pentatonic. Once I get to the high E string, I can shift up by 2 frets, and I'm in my Phrygian pentatonic, and I can go all the way down. And I can try the same thing on the G string. I've just got to jump my finger up by a few more frets. Let's have a look. Shifting up by 3 frets, and I'm in Phrygian pentatonic. And maybe I'll shift back down in the same place. Shifting down by 3 frets, and finishing off my Dorian pentatonic. There are also a couple places I could shift up on my 4th finger, like on the B string. If I bring my 4th finger up by 2 frets, I'm in position to play the Phrygian pentatonic. And I can shift back down and finish off the Dorian pentatonic. I can also do the same thing on the low E string by shifting up by 3 frets, and then that puts me in Phrygian pentatonic, and I can do the same thing on the A string as well. Shifting up by 3 frets, and I'm in Phrygian pentatonic. Shifting back down in the same place by 3 frets, and back in Dorian. Of course, just like all of our other scale combinations, we want to be able to combine these two shapes by shifting back and forth in different places. Again, turning it really into one big scale shape and one big group of notes. So now, being able to combine all 4 of these scale shapes, minor, major, Dorian, and Phrygian, is going to give us access to quite a few notes across the fretboard. But there is one more scale shape to learn to be able to map out the entire key. And this last one we're going to call the Mixolydian Pentatonic, named for starting on the 5th note of the major scale. But you might be thinking, aren't you skipping the 4th note of the scale? And yes, I am, but that's because the 4th note is taken out of our regular diatonic scale to get the pentatonic scale. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now, at least until we get to playing the diatonic scale. We can go through all the theory stuff later. So let's get in position and look at this scale shape on its own first. It's going to start on the 2nd finger, which I'm going to put on the 5th fret. Once again, just going through the finger combination, I've got 2 and 4 on the first 2 strings, 1 and 4 on the next 2 strings, and 2 and 4 again on the last 2. And going back down, I've got 4-2 on these first 2 strings, 4-1 on the next 2, and 4-2 again on the last 2. Again, we want to get that shape under our fingers before combining with the Phrygian Pentatonic that we just looked at. But when you're ready, we can combine them and see how they go together. Again, we're going to look for spots where we can shift up on our first finger, which we've got on the D and G strings. So let's look at the D string shift first. I'll put my Phrygian Pentatonic starting down on the 3rd fret to give myself some room to move up. Shifting up here by 2 frets, and I'm in my Mixolydian Pentatonic. And I can shift down in the same place. Down by 2 frets, and I'm back in Phrygian Pentatonic. And I can do the exact same thing on the G string. Up by 2 frets, and the rest of my Mixolydian Pentatonic. And again, back down in the same place. Down by 2 frets. With this scale combination, I've also got some spots where I can shift on my 4th finger, like on the high E string. Bring it up by 2 frets, and I'm in my Mixolydian Pentatonic. And of course, whatever shape is on the high E string is also on the low E string, so I could shift back down there. Back down by 2 frets, and I'm in my Phrygian Pentatonic. I can do the same shift on the A string, bringing my 4th finger up by 2 frets, putting me in Mixolydian. Shifting back down by 2 frets, back in Phrygian. So once you've incorporated these 2 new scale shapes, you might be wondering which one comes next. Well, we've actually worked our way all the way around, and the scale that comes next to the Mixolydian is actually the minor pentatonic again. You can kind of think of it like how the note on the 12th fret is the same note as the open string. So if I started my minor pentatonic scale on the open strings, and went through all of these shapes, I'd end up back at the minor pentatonic scale at the 12th fret. So once you've learned all of these shapes and how to combine them, you'll be able to play anywhere in any key. Different keys will put the shapes in different places, but no matter where you are, you'll have access to some notes in that key. So last but not least, we have to look at how to go from our Mixolydian pentatonic back to our minor pentatonic. And with these two, we can switch on any string, either with our first finger on the D and G string, or with our fourth finger on the rest of the strings. I'll try this one by starting my Mixolydian down on the 3rd fret, and I'll do the G string shift first. Shifting up by 3 frets puts me in minor pentatonic. And back down by 3 frets, back in the Mixolydian. And I can do the same thing on the D string. Up by 3 frets, into the minor pentatonic. Back down by 3 frets, back in the Mixolydian. I can also shift up on the B string with my 4th finger. I just gotta go up by 3 frets, and I'm in minor pentatonic. Back down by 3 frets, and I'm back in the Mixolydian. Same thing on the high and low E strings, shifting up on our 4th finger by 3 frets. Let me do the high E string shift first. Up by 3 frets, and I'm in minor pentatonic, and I can go down, back down on the low E string. Down by 3 frets, back in the Mixolydian. So there you have it. Once you've memorized all these scales and how to combine them, you can play anywhere in any key. Remember, the idea is to be able to switch back and forth as you please, treating it all as one big set of notes, because once you're in a particular key, that's all it really is. Next time around, I'll look at combining 3 or more of these scale shapes, giving us a more diagonal path across the fretboard. In the meantime, get some of these new scale shapes under your fingers and getting back and forth in between them. Don't be afraid to try them at different frets or playing along with a backing track. And until next time, happy practicing.